Good morning, or is it afternoon stuff? 12. And welcome to Yarn Lane. This is, well, if you've been watching Stone Street, you'll know how excited I am by this. So we have had Christine Winwick Mum on before, and you loved her, obviously, because she's the queen of socks. When I spoke to her before, she told me how she had created this brand new yarn in conjunction with West Yorkshire Spinners. And I've been dying to see it. And I've seen all the pictures of it, but I haven't been able to get hold of it until this morning, because today is the launch, and we are lucky enough to be allowed to sell it today and bring it to you on the launch. It's never been available before today. It's all been kept very top secret. So there we go. Look at the picture. These are the socks. You can knit yourself a year of socks. A year of socks. So there's a spring sock, a summer sock, an autumn sock, and obviously a winter sock too. So what I'm going to do before we meet Christine, who's going to show you how to knit socks, because she knows everything there is to know about socks, I'm just going to show you what we've got. So I've got this fantastic bundle. So Christine, I need to move my yarn because I can't open it otherwise, has written this pattern book, Seasons, and in here there are 4 hand knitted sock designs. So we go through the book, and there they are. So there's a different pattern for each season, and then there's a different yarn for each season. Now obviously you don't have to knit fresh shoots in spring or sizzling rays in the summer colours. That's up to you. You can mix and match them, but they do look lovely, don't they? So every season you just get a new pair of socks, or you give the winter ones to somebody, you keep the summer ones, you can do what you like. So in the book there are all the socks. Now, what we've got here is one ball of each of the yarns. So not only do you get the 4 patterns, one for each season, you get the yarn for each season. So this one is called Spring Green. That's beautiful, isn't it? I'm going to talk to Christine about it in a minute. This one, Summer Sunset, is beautiful. I mean, this is West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn, 35% Blueface Leicester, which is really soft. I love Blueface Leicester sheep. It's a bit like merino, isn't it?
Yes, it's a bit like our variety.
Our version, merino. It's like, yeah, so soft, but it has a little bit of nylon in it as well, because it's sock yarn. Make it extra strong. That's right. Then we've got the Autumn Leaves. That's that one. And then we've got Winter Icicle. So the best thing about this, I put them together in the bundle so that you can get the pattern, so that you've got the 4 patterns, and there's a different pattern for each season. It's not the same pattern, so you've got 4 different colours of wool yarn, and you've got 4 different patterns. If you buy the 4 yarns, 1 ball of each, and 1 ball is enough to make 1 pair of socks, by the way, and you buy the pattern, we have done this at a special price for you today. So you will save £2.50, and you will have a whole year's worth of socks. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend you wear 1 pair of socks for 3 months, because that would be quite a long time. But this is like your whole season of socks. So should we have a quick look at the patterns? So there's the spring. Now, there are a lot of you trying to order this on the phone line, because as it says on screen, you can either order with us on yarnlane.com, you click on watch live, scroll down below and all the products are there, or if you'd rather go on the call centre, it's 0800 4700 600, and there's a lot of you on the phone lines trying to order these at the moment. It's really, really busy, but just bear with us, be patient and hang on, and they will get to you. Because it's a launch. It's a launch. Aren't we lucky? There's the summer ones, Sizzling Rays. Love that. It's really pretty on the top. And then we have the autumn ones. So I like the way you've almost got like 16 combinations here. You've got 4 patterns, 4 balls of yarn. You can do it in any order that you want. Falling Hues. That's with the autumn colour. I love that. And then we've got Winter Icicle. So a quarter of the stock of this bundle has gone already, so if you want it, you need to put it in your basket, you need to check out Frosted Ice Lace and Twist Pattern Socks. Now, we are going to be selling these separately, so you can buy just the pattern book if you want, and you can buy each individual ball of yarn as you want, but I wanted to put together, to celebrate the launch, a special pack for you with a little bit of a saving in celebration, and half the stock has now gone. So, Christine, tell me how you chose the colours to start with.
Well,
I know it's green.
It was
How,
the season.
yeah, but how did you must have had to choose what shades
Yes,
of green.
I mean there's a story behind everything.
We want to know the
I
story.
can hold my there's always a story behind everything, because that's sort of how my blog and everything is. So the story of this one is it's being outside, and we've really missed that this last year, haven't we? But the it's being able to be outside in the fresh air, to see the green on the trees as they start to form. We have an oak tree in our garden, and the brown leaves stay on the tree almost until the point where the brand new
Yeah, my
green
beech
ones,
tree does the same.
and then you look out the window one day and there's green fuzz.
So
And
the green spring green is on the screen at the moment. If you want to buy just the green on its own.
Yes, it's like some kind of magic, I think.
It is. I feel it's like the world's been coloured in.
Yeah, yes, absolutely right. But then when you start to look, there are so many different shades of
Well, I
green.
know. So how did you sort of say to Welsh Yorkshire Spinners, right, these are the shades I want of green?
Yes, pretty much so. So a lot of this has come from when I've been out with the dog. I take lots of photos for the blog, and when I've put them up on the blog page to look at them, and you notice how many shades of green there are, and even within one photograph there can be so many shades, and they just go together without you even thinking
Well, they
about
work
them. So,
amazingly well in the socks. You've got real defined stripes, haven't you?
well, these are my very special Winwick Mum stripes, that the absolutely incredible dye
How
house
does it
genies
work
make
then?
for me. So, well, it goes from each stripe has got its own block of colour, but then it blends with one
Yeah, no,
round
it really
into
does,
the one above
doesn't it?
and the one below. So the reason that there's yellow in here is because primroses that come up. So that was the thing that really struck me, is that when I was out in the middle green, then every now and again there'd be a pop of colour in the hedgerows, and it was particularly the primroses when I was out that struck me. So that's where that came from. But and all of the stripes work in the same.
Okay, so the
way.
summer one then, how did you, because there's so many colours of summer.
This one is actually a photograph of a real sunset that my smallest daughter, she's blinking teenager, she's doing her GCSE, she'll flatten me for calling her small daughter. We went out one night, there was the most incredible sky, and we said, oh, let's go, and she was taking photographs while we just went around the block with the dog, and we watched the sky turn all these shades. It looked like it was on fire.
Wow. So
Absolutely
it's one of those,
amazing.
it is a
So
summer sunset.
this
So that one's on screen at the
literally
moment. All of these yarns are in the bundle, but if you want to buy them individually, you can, and that's the summer. It is, I mean, it really is one of those sunny summer sunsets.
Oh, it was,
isn't it?
and you might think that, oh, she's made those up, she's put the colours together, but I've got the photograph.
It's got the photo to
And
prove it.
to
They should
prove
have put
it,
that in the book, shouldn't they?
Well, yeah, it's going on the blog later, so anybody who wants to have a look.
Can you use these for other things than socks?
Yes, and I do get told off by West Yorkshire Spinners for calling it sock yarn, and it's not. It's 4-ply yarn that's suitable for anything.
Suitable for socks. Perfect for socks,
Yes,
but
it's
not
perfect
only.
for no, not only for socks, and it's just really lovely 4-ply yarn.
Okay.
So anything
That's
that would
4-ply.
require 4-ply could
Yes.
do that. I've seen jumpers knitted in this. Dog jackets. I've seen some fantastic dog jackets.
Oh, a jacket for every dog season.
Well, there you go. Baby clothes. It's
Yeah.
really good for shawls, shawls and cowls, particularly if you're doing a one ball or I was going to say a one skein project, but it's the same amount of yarn, so it would work for patterns
Yes,
that
it
needed
would,
that
wouldn't
were one skein projects, because it's still 100 grams. And depending on how it knits up, sometimes with very long rows, this comes out in stripes.
Yes, because I guess
stripes
you
rather
had
than
designed
like
this to fit socks in the
Yeah,
colour stripes, but
yeah,
you
that's-
could use it, it would work.
It works
So what
for-
about
works for-
autumn? I mean, obviously it's leaves, but again, you chose the colours.
Yes, yeah. These are again out on dog walks. These are the colours, and this was one that I worked with the dye house geniuses, magicians they are. They go, oh, what about this? and I had a lot of brown in it, and I was saying, well, I see all these browns, and they're going, yeah. What else do you see? What else can you? Oh, so that's when we put the.
So did you spend some
butterscotch
time with the dye house?
No, I couldn't this year because
of course,
everything's been done in lockdown. So the way that it happened was that I'd get lots of things through the post. I'd get lots of photographs. There'd be lots of phone calls, and they'd go, pick this up or look at this. And so it wasn't particularly with the dye house, but I worked with Rhiannon, who's also a genius at West Yorkshire Spinners, and so she would be the go-between between
until
us.
It was just what you wanted to be.
Yeah, that's right. So sometimes they would send me a swatch of how it worked, or they'd send me the colours of how it worked, and we'd think, oh, there's something not quite right. And so with the summer one, for example, there was something that was not quite right, and they said, don't worry, I'll put some other things in the post, and then about 2 days later,
so they really spent time with you. Then,
they are so very conscientious about getting it absolutely right, because aside from it being what I wanted, it needs to be what they want as well.
I guess so.
And what people who are going to knit
what you want too.
Otherwise it just becomes a very expensive vanity vehicle.
Well, that's true.
That shouldn't be how the world works, should it?
No, but obviously what you choose is what other people want, though.
Well, I hope so.
And then finally, winter.
Yes, winter.
So it could be just grey, couldn't it?
It could be just grey, and it was really hard not to get sucked into a certain Disney film as well.
Yeah.
They were singing that song for the rest of the day. So that was really hard. But these colours are actually based on a very special birthday trip a few years ago now, when we went to the Ice Hotel in Sweden. And the main thing that fascinated me about that is that although up in the Arctic Circle everything is grey light, so you don't really see the sunlight at all, and there's not necessarily any colour in the day for a big portion of it. The way that the Ice Hotel is built with ice from the local river, when they shone lights through it, then it just changed colour. This was it. So sometimes they shone clear lights through, and sometimes there'd be greens or blues, and the way that it shone in the ice, it just makes you think that actually we're missing something. Our eyes are, we think it's grey and dull.
I know, but this is beautiful. I mean, it really is not wintry. It makes you think ice, doesn't it?
That was exactly it. And when we got this was another one that we had a few goes with just to get it perfect.
Because it's got purple in it.
Oh well, actually, do you know what? That's actually cornflower blue.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was. It started off with purple in it,
it is a mauve, sort of a bluey purple.
It looks purple in here because I adore purple, and I started off with one that was like, do you want purple in every yarn? No. So we took it out, and then when we started to put the other colours with it, and I absolutely love this cornflower blue anyway, but it does look purple, doesn't it? So,
I think it's only because it's against the sort of the turquoise apple colours.
I was absolutely thrilled because I got my purple anyway. So I love it. I just absolutely love them all, and there's not one that's my favourite. I am just absolutely thrilled with
Well, I said to you at the beginning, I think the winter is my favourite, although I'm drawn to the autumn because I always like autumn colours, but it's really hard, isn't it?
It is really hard.
So, the bundle of all 4, there's less than 10 left. So if you want the bundle where you get the pattern book and all 4 balls of yarn, you need to check out, otherwise they will be gone. So the pattern, how did you choose the pattern? So you can't buy the pattern book on your own, that's coming up on screen. How did you choose the patterns?
Well, what I always try and do in my patterns is try and think of what they're for. So knowing this one, for example, was for the winter icicle yarn, and I knew that I'd based my yarn colour ideas on the winter and the snow, and so I wanted the pattern to reflect that. And it took me quite a long time to get exactly what I was looking for, because a lot of what we think about in the winter is those beautiful leafy frosty patterns that we get on the glass when it's been cold overnight, and I didn't want to do that because I'd already created leaves with the autumn. So then I was thinking, well, how else does ice work? And the good thing about this is that it makes me really think about what's there. What can you see in front of you? What's reflected? So this particular lace pattern, it's got I don't know if you can see, but it's actually quite angular the way that it is, and it made me think of ice in puddles.
Yeah, no, it does. It is quite angular. It does
Yeah,
have that kind of
yeah,
snowflake effect,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
so I wanted sort of like a fractured ice kind of look to it, and then I use these twisted cables down here because one of the things that really struck me is how strong ice and snow is when it's packed together. And actually, it's only particles of water, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
yes,
you can build structures from it. You know,
No, it does really reflect that, doesn't it?
So I liked the idea that these tiny cables still looked like they were really strong because our connotations of cables are that they hold ships or they're ropes and things, you know. So that was why I put those two together. And I just
put a lot of thought and time into this.
I do put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, this is your baby, isn't it?
Yes, it's really important for me to feel that the colours and the pattern match each other.
Yeah,
And,
well, that you've really connected to this as well. You know, this is yours.
Yeah.
This is your creation.
It is,
So
it is.
we're working backwards. So what about the autumn pattern then?
The autumn pattern, well, that's
So you get all 4 patterns in this book as well. For only $9.50, you get
all 4 of them.
all 4.
Yep, and they're written with charts, and they're written with written instructions as well. So
Okay.
So whichever is your preference, you can use both. And I would always say to somebody who isn't really that confident at charts and they'd rather use the written instructions is just have a look and see if you can match the two together. And even if you only do it for a couple of rows, just have a look, and then that helps to build your confidence, because sometimes it's much easier to look at a chart. So if you look at the chart you've got there, it looks tiny, whereas the written instructions are quite a lot bigger. So sometimes it's just easier to look at it.
But it'd be nice to teach yourself charts because you can use both, can't you?
Absolutely. And there are beginner tutorials on my blog as well for people who've never used cables or used lace or used charts. So that then lets people use those patterns with confidence, knowing that they can go and find help. Because sometimes the worst thing is, I couldn't look at that. I couldn't consider that because I've never done it before. Well, you know, I will help you do it. I will help you do it.
Christine knows more about socks than anybody.
Oh, I don't know about that. No.
I've met. That's my.
Anybody else in the room? Let's go for that.
Yes,
one,
no, anybody I've ever met. No one else in the room. That's not difficult. So I love the falling hues. So that's it's leaves, isn't it?
It's leaves. It's leaves. Yes. So there are leaves down the centre of the sock, and
Can you move it right just a bit because it's?
I did this last time.
graphics.
I always had it in the.
Well, I know it's just it crashes into the graphics.
I'm busy showing it to you.
I know. It's difficult. Isn't it? Oh, you can really see the leaves now.
So the leaves work their way down the front and also down the back. And if you didn't want to put them on the back, it would be fine. So if you were quite new to lace and you only wanted to put them on the front and get the back plain, then you could do that. There's no reason at all why not. But
well, it's certainly interesting to knit. It won't get boring, will it? It's not like you've got to really think about it.
Well, actually, this pattern is only 8 rounds or 8 rows long, and 4 of those are a knit. So there's only 4 of them that you actually have to do anything with the stitches at all.
But it's quite nice that though, isn't it? That's what makes knitting so enjoyable, is when you have to really think about it and concentrate.
Because then what you do is you just repeat that pattern as many times as you want. But that's what's so good for our brains. That's what keeps us going, isn't it?
Keeps us alive.
Keeps our neural pathways working.
Stops us think about anything else. Just socks.
It really does. I absolutely firmly believe that little noise in your head, it's really interested in what your hands are doing. So if you keep your hands busy, then it can't be telling you things that you don't want to listen to.
Exactly.
It's never very nice, that little voice, is it?
No, it isn't. It's best to ignore that, and I find knitting helps.
I think so. I agree with that. So yes, that's that one, and it's
got some rays. Is that a rib that's going down?
It's similar twisted stitches to the I was going to say the winter ice called frosted ice pattern.
Right.
So if you can do that one, then you can.
It's nice. It looks
kind
of ropey, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Ropey, as in like a rope. Rubbish. Looks sort of ropey.
I knew exactly what you meant.
You know what I meant, yes.
So yes, and that was the sycamore helicopters as they come down. That's what made me think of that one.
That spiral. Because there's so much. There is it's a whole story. When you knit a pair of these socks, you are knitting Christine's story.
But also your story, because everybody has got a tree near to them.
Yes, indeed.
There are very few people who don't live anywhere near
And then you should wear your socks on the first day of the new season.
Oh, I think so. Catch a leaf, make
exactly.
a wish.
So you've got to do these by March the 21st. First day of spring.
That's all right.
Yes, that's fine. And skip through the garden in your spring socks. So let's move to spring. Yeah. Oh no, we're still on summer. So summer's pretty. I know we're going backwards through the season. That's just the way it is. Sizzling rays.
Yes. Isn't that a good name?
That's
for that
very
pattern?
pretty at the top,
and it's
isn't it?
Very simple, and it works so beautifully with this yarn. Is that this again? It's a very simple lace pattern, but it's just the right size for one of the stripes. So it looks
and
like
it is just that sort of little top. But it is the sunset. It's beautiful.
Oh, I was so happy with the colours when they worked out like these. And it's generally what's happened is that I gave West Yorkshire Spinners the colours that I wanted to use, and then they took them away and looked at what they'd got. And so some of these will match with some of the yarns that they have already, which means that if you want to put contrasts with them, then you can use the
okay.
The
Do you get any
colours,
left over when you've knitted a pair?
Yes. My feet take about 75, 79 grams of yarn, so there's some left over.
So you could knit a fifth pair from all of them.
I could.
A little bit.
I could.
Can you imagine?
I could have seasonal scrappy socks. What an excellent idea that is.
Sort of half of this could be like one sock.
Yeah, you could have summer cuffs and winter heels.
Yes, I think that'd be wonderful.
That would be a stunning idea.
Oh, Hannah's got a question. Oh, sorry, I thought Hannah had a question. What size is the largest? I take a 7.5 shoe.
Right, the largest size is a 72 stitches, which is based on they're all based on foot circumference rather than on the actual shoe size. So you they go from 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5 circumference. So you would need to measure around the ball of your foot.
Right,
here.
so it's not about length.
No, because actually you and I might take the same shoe size. So I'm a 5, and you might have a 5, but we might have different width feet.
Oh, exactly. So if you've got thin feet or fat feet, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so actually with hand knits, it might find that even though we were both a 5, we might not wear the same size socks. So,
exactly.
So your 7.5 feet, there will be a size that
so actually these
go
up to size 15, really, because you just make them longer.
You just keep
whatever
going.
shoe size you've got.
Exactly, absolutely. I've knitted a pair of size 14, not that long ago. Out of one ball of those as well.
Did you?
I did. So if you don't mind about the matching, then you can get.
You go, yeah. I'm going for the one of each season and then the multi-season sock.
It's got to be done. I want to see you wearing those.
So the bundle is now sold out. So, but we do sell. The pattern book is available separately and all of the yarns. So you can buy them all together, but you won't save the £2.50 because the bundle's sold out. Or you can just buy the book and one yarn. Obviously, the yarn does not come with the book, so you have to choose.
Yeah.
Right. So we've done. Have we moved on to? No, we've done summer sunset fresh shoots, and then we can start talking. Gosh, we're running out of time.
Right then,
fresh shoots. I like that one. That's like I'm trying to describe the pattern in it. It's like a cable, but then it goes through a rib as well.
Yes, it is
an intertwined cable.
It is a cable, and this came from when I was small. I lived at my parents' house. I lived at my parents' house till I was bigger than small. But anyway, when I was very small, we lived across the road from a farmer, and every year he used to take part in ploughing championships, and it was just one of those things that I knew that Fred the farmer who lived across the road won trophies because he was a champion ploughman, and I never really thought about it until later. But actually what he got his trophies for was his beautifully straight ploughed furrows down the field. So these are Fred's ploughed furrows down the field, and the cables are as he turned it.
I love that.
That's the story behind.
Yeah, because the
behind that
cable
one.
does. What's lovely about the pattern book is that you've got some really close-up photos as well.
Yes.
So you can really, once you're doing it, you can see how the cable swaps from one furrow to the next.
That's right, and that was the idea, because if you've looked at a ploughed field, or you've seen a tractor with a ploughing attachment on the back, then they've got those sort of metal, I don't know what you'd call them, sort of ploughshares, I suppose they are, aren't they? But they actually turn the soil as they go, and that's what.
And that's how it works. That's brilliant. What a lovely story.
So, and this cable, it's only on the front.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, it's on the front here. I was thinking it's on the front, but it's on the back, but on this side. So when you wear your socks, they're either and they're mirrored, so they're either both on the outside or they're both on the inside, depending on how you put the
Okay,
sock
so
on.
you put them on the right feet.
That's right.
And there's a pattern. Brilliant. Oh, that's lovely. We have also got, before we come over to it, I just wanted to say, last time, the Super Socks book and the More Super Socks books, we sold out of last time, and we just couldn't get enough in. But we've got more in. We've got more in. So the first book that Christine wrote is Super Socks. So if you've never knitted a pair of socks before, you need this, don't you? This tells you everything. I've got one of these. Christine gave me one, so I'm so excited. Oh, Diane's discovered she has measured her feet, and they will fit her.
Excellent, brilliant. That's really good.
She's measured her feet, and the larger size will fit her. So the Super Socks book, as Christine was saying earlier, if you haven't knitted socks, you've got any questions, everything you need to know is in here, as well as the sock patterns.
Yes.
Not those patterns, but other sock patterns.
There's a basic sock pattern in there for 4-ply. And also one for 6-ply, which is slightly thicker, so if you fancy the boot sock, then that's...
There's also, because Christine's going to be talking to us in a minute about working with double-pointed needles and working with cable needles. All of that is explained in here. The other book, More Super Socks, is further techniques, so that moves on.
Yes.
So do you need to start with Super Socks?
Well, if you've never knitted a sock before, then that's the one to go for, because More Super Socks assumes that you know how to knit a basic sock, and those patterns and techniques, it does actually say in the book, if you've never knitted a sock before, then have a look at the basic one. So all of my patterns are based on that same shape. So for anybody who's ever knitted one of my basic socks, then they should feel comfortable in moving on to any of the others that I've done, because I don't change that shape. I do the same heel, I do the same toe.
And it really, so this is, if you have not knitted socks before, this is really good.
I've tried to write it so that you and I would be sitting together, for example, so that I'm saying, now do this,
that's
pick up
nice.
this, look at this bit that you've done.
Yeah, and you've got some really good photos as well, because it's the heel, isn't it, that people go...
People get very worried about the heel, but it's only the same. It's only the same stitches that you're just turning them round, and you only work on half of them to create the heel as well. So there's no real technical wizardry. As long as you just follow the pattern, trust it works. It really does work. Then you'll be able to do it, and you'll turn heels, and people will think you're an absolute knitting superstar.
Well, honestly, those socks look like a knitting superstar. And then More Super Socks is just, we move on to lace.
We do.
Move on to lace.
We do. There are four next step techniques in that. So there's cables, lace, colour work, and also that one that you've got there, patchwork. Yeah.
Now this is ideal for your mixed seasonal sock. So all the bits you've got left over, patchwork socks.
That's really good for leftovers. That's
I
a
love
technique
those.
called intarsia. And it's intarsia in the round, so it's slightly different to what anybody might have done knitting a jumper with a picture on it.
Yes.
But it works really well for leftovers.
They're lovely. Yeah, so they really are. So this is your basic one. This teaches you a few more techniques. And then all of that is in the patterns.
Yeah.
In there. Fantastic. Right, okay. Now we've done everything. Where should we start? Where
would you like to start? I have brought with me...
last time you taught us all about the heels.
Yes.
And the 4 needles.
Yes.
And how difficult that was. And how a cable needle's better.
No, you'll get people telling you off about that.
Yeah.
Lots of people
It's a personal choice,
it is
isn't it?
indeed, yes.
Yes.
Well, I brought my sample needles again in case you wanted to look at those.
Yes,
those
that's
again.
lovely. And I have got all the needles here. If you just
there.
look on the website below where we are, all the needles that Christine is talking about are there. So we've got them all here.
Should we do a quick
Yes.
recap of this then? So this is double pointed needles, which lots of people like.
Lots of people like. I just get.
Oh, it can be fiddly. I mean, the socks are traditional.
Are they 3.5 or 2.5?
These will be 2.5.
Right.
So socks have always been traditionally knitted on double pointed needles, and so people often feel that that's where they've got to start. But we have got other options now. So you don't, unless you really particularly wanted to, or the person who's teaching you perhaps. Look, I've dropped bits of wood all over the table here off my socks.
Oh, off your socks. I was thinking, where have you got where's that from?
So this is what it looks like on. I've only got 4 needles here. I think one of them went down the dashboard of my car. So your socks are very portable. You take them with you.
Will ever come out?
No. I think that's gone forever. That's why I use circulars. So you can knit on 4 needles, and then that gives you a square to work on, and I prefer that. So you'd have four to knit with, and then 1 extra. So
right. Yes. So we have got ours in 5s. Yes.
But
red ones.
But other people will prefer to knit them as a triangle like this. So you'd knit on the 3 with the 4th needle, and that's an entirely optional preference. And I think just try it all. It doesn't
see what you think.
See what you think. So that's that one.
And you cover all of that in Super Socks.
I do. Yes, Super Socks is written for double pointed needles for a short circular, which is this one, and also a long circular, which is known as the magic loop technique. So this is the other needle that you have,
which we've got. That one. That one. That one's red as well.
That's right.
Look at it. It's like a baby needle. It's so small, isn't it?
It is small. It takes a bit of getting used to. Some people who knit, I'm what you'd call a handlebar knitter. So normally, if I was knitting with straight needle, I'd put my hands like that. So some people who also knit like that find it quite hard to then move onto this because your hands don't work. That there's not enough.
Yeah.
You see. So generally, a bit over exaggerated here, but if you angle your wrists out slightly, then that does help. And with this needle, you're always knitting with the stitches here in front of you. So if you imagine that it's a clock, and this is 12 o'clock and this is 6 o'clock, then you want to keep your needle tips here at 6 o'clock.
Right.
And then that makes that easier to knit with. And then there are different sizes of this as well. So you've got a 25 centimetre, which is a good size,
yes,
I think, for somebody who's not used one before. I often use one I usually use one that's slightly bigger, but lots of people like them that are even smaller than that. But you have to try them.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's worth having a go.
Smaller ones make my hands cramp up, so that's why I like the one that's the size that you've got.
Yeah, so we bought this one specifically. Christine shows the only time we ever sell it, we bought it specifically for you. Because this was, well, I wanted to be able to give them the one that you recommend. Yeah, so there's the double pointed you need. Yeah. That's the circular.
Yeah, that short circular is a really good size for someone wanting to try one of those out. So that's that one. And then I've also brought
the super long one.
The super long one.
Which is this one, the 80 centimetre.
80 centimetres. So my cable's a different colour to yours, but it's the same. It's absolutely the same. So these ones have really long tips, and these are great for people who knit with their. It's much better for people who knit with their needle over their hand, and they knit like that. Because if you think about the little one, if you're trying to do that, it's difficult. Some people manage it who knit like this. It's not always easy. So if you wanted to knit with a circular, then you do have that as your style.
And then it can be any length, can't it, with this method?
Yes. What happens is the longer it is, then the bigger the loops you get. 80 centimetres is a good length because this is about right. You can use smaller. I wouldn't go any smaller than 60 centimetres. 40 centimetres is really, really difficult to work with in my experience. So this size, this 80 centimetre one, the one that you've got, I would say that's just right for knitting one sock at a time. If you want to do 2 socks at a time, then you need a bit bigger.
Okay, one sock at a time.
That's for another day.
That's the next show where we knit 2 socks at the same time. That'd be definitely the next show.
So what I've done is I've brought a section of it's actually a section of autumn leaves.
Okay.
So you can see. Move over again. You can see the pattern. The
that's
the leafy
so
pattern
pretty, isn't it?
That's there. The cuff is created with twisted rib, and that just makes it means it's a knit 1 purl 1 rib, and by twisting the stitches, it just gives a bit more definition to the individual knit stitches. And sometimes we find that if you just knit it in an ordinary, in the usual way, then sometimes it goes a bit baggy. So by twisting the stitch, it keeps it nice and tight, and then it gives it this extra ridge and makes it look really nice. So that's the leafy pattern there, and then this is the twisted cable pattern, and this is really easy. This is cabling on 2 stitches but without a cable needle. So it's very clever. It's all part of this yarn magician stuff.
Isn't it?
We all want to
is
look
it so that people think you're really clever?
We are really
clever, but it looks really clever. I can knit, and that looks really clever.
Oh, it looks really smart, and what I really love, and particularly about socks, is that once you know how to do it, they're not that hard, but it makes you look fantastic.
And that's what it's all about.
It really
it's all
is.
about
really
looking
is.
fantastic.
Do you know, there's lots of life that's all about creating an illusion, and this is
this is a knitting version of it.
We should do that more often, I think. So what I've also done on this before we started, I don't know if you can see, there's a red thread here.
Yes.
And this is what's called a lifeline.
Yes.
And we put these in, and you can put these in on basic socks, you can put them in on more complicated socks, you can use it for absolutely anything, so jumpers, shawls, particularly anything with lace, because you have yarn over stitches, which if you drop them, they can be very difficult to pick up again. So by putting this lifeline in, what it means is that if you need to take your stitches back, the yarn won't go any further than the red line.
Right. So how often do you put a lifeline in? Well, you probably don't anymore, but...
No, I do. I do. I learned the hard way that you can never be too experienced to put a lifeline in. So I've got one. I've actually got one in here because I know that there's a good chance that while I'm doing this and talking to you, I'm going to go wrong.
Right.
So that's just how it is. I don't even think twice about it now. It's just something that I do. Lots of people like to do it before they start the heel, particularly if they're new to the socks. Because then if you need to take it back out, so for example here, they might put a lifeline in here, and then if it all goes wrong somewhere in the middle, you just take it back, and you're not going to lose all of the length of your leg. So it's just an extra bit of security, and I don't think that it's anything that somebody should think that they're too good to use.
That's be like they're saying, "Oh, you think you're too good for a lifeline, do you?" That should be your saying.
Too good for a lifeline.
Too good for a lifeline.
No, that doesn't sound quite right, really, does it?
But no, that makes sense, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it's something that it makes us feel safer when we're knitting.
Yeah.
And so why
I love the idea.
Yeah. So one of the things that people will say, well, I don't know how this whole magic loop thing works.
No, I don't. I vaguely understand it, but not really.
Well, it's called magic loop because it's got a loop and you move it. So that's my understanding of why it's called. I'm quite sure somebody else will tell me if that's not what it's really why it was really called that. But and you work your stitches by having a loop at each end, and then you move the loop so that your actual size of the knitting that you've got doesn't change. It's just the loop that moves, if that makes sense. So you're always working on the stitches that are right in front of you. So if you push the tip of the needle through the stitches, hold on to them quite tight so that you don't pull the wrong one, and then the needle that's at the back, the needle tip here, you pull it. That's why you have to hold the right one.
Right. So the one in front of you hold, and the one behind you.
Yes, this is the one that's holding the stitches, and it's holding them safely. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to fall off. And then you're always working on the stitches that are in front of you.
Right.
So.
And then you knit like normal.
Yeah. You would knit like normal. So this is I'm actually doing a knit row all the way across here, and the reason that you do the knit rows is, I don't know if you can see, but when you've worked a pattern row, then the stitches are sometimes bunched up. We've got yarn over stitches here,
right?
So
they've got a bit
so there's a gap. So if when you knit across them and you just do a plain knit row, then it means that you put them all back into the right order again. So,
yes.
So that when you come to do your next row of lace stitches, then they're all just ready to go.
They're all sort of they're lying neatly.
Yes, that's right. So here you if you can see that was a yarn over from before.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that we have yarn overs in lace knitting is to make the gaps. That's what gives you the holes.
Yeah.
So you decrease stitches, and they're exactly the same decrease stitches that you'd use on the gusset of a sock, but because you have to keep the number of stitches the same, then you make a new stitch by pulling the yarn over. So sometimes it's called a yarn over, sometimes it's called a yarn forward. It depends on how the pattern's written and the way that you'd be pulling the yarn from one side to the other.
Right, okay.
And the other thing, while I'm thinking about it, is that sometimes when you've been working lace, if the stitches seem a little bit bunched up, then just move them. It's absolutely fine to move your stitches around and hold them with your fingers so that it's easy to get the needle in. So that's my plain knit row done, and all I've done is a couple of purl stitches in between.
Right, so now you put that needle you finished with, so that's behind you.
Yes, that's right. So here's my working yarn, and I need that to be at the front now. I'll go in the right place. So all you need to do then is either pull or push those front stitches.
So because that's where you're going to be starting.
That's right, because I'm
always
working on the needle that's in front of me. Hold it tight, and then pull the back one.
Okay.
And then I'm ready.
And then
to
you can
go,
just start again.
Ready to go again.
So hold the one in front, pull the back one.
Pull the back one. Yes, that's right.
Well, that's magic. That is, because I've tried to work that out. I've done it once where I kept shuffling them all round.
That would be hard work. That would take you a
really,
long time.
Really hard. I kept having to have a big loop about every 10 stitches. I'd have to move it around. Ridiculous. And I thought there must be an easier way. But now I know.
Yeah, and it is easy when you know.
So it's just about every half round you just you just swap the needles over.
Yes, that's right. So you're always working on a front and the back of the sock, and then when you come to do the heel, then you would leave your front stitches, so your instep top of the foot stitches are on the cable while you work on the heel, and then they're all safe there. They're not going to go anywhere. So
anything circular you could do with that if the cable is bigger.
Oh, you will never sew a jumper sleeve seam again if you
true.
But hats, you could lots of jumpers. Some cardigans.
Because the problem with cables is you need so many different needles and cable sizes, don't you? But if you use that, you only need one cable.
Yeah, you can knit a pair of socks entirely on this, and you don't need any other needles to go with it.
I'm liking that.
And also, you don't drop them down the dashboard of your car.
And then only have 4. I had some bamboo double pointed, and then one broke because they do break.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I don't often knit with wooden ones, because I know that I would break, or I end up with teeth marks in them because the dog.
I chew mine all the time. I've always got a needle in my mouth.
I was going to say it was the dog. I wasn't going to say it was
you. No, don't you? I've always got like don't know. My crochet hooks are like that as well. They've all got a few teeth marks.
You need to use metal ones, I think.
I do.
Well, then you might have no teeth left.
Yeah, it's like the rubbery handles. I don't know why. That's so lovely.
So now that I'm back onto a pattern row again, and the other thing that I do with Magic Loop is I put something on the front side.
Okay, well we've got stitch markers, because you said stitch markers. I've got stitch markers.
You've got those locking ones, which it's very similar to this. I think this was a safety pin that came out of a top or something. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, no, I've got stitch markers.
So yours are much more glamorous than mine.
Glamorous stitch markers.
Glamorous stitch markers, yeah. And so that's how you know that you've done a full round. So when you've done the back,
so you've got to remember. Okay.
Yeah. So otherwise, if you don't put that in, it can be quite easy to forget. And then if you have to put it down and go away, then by the time you come back, you think, am I in the front? Am I in the back? So by putting something in the front, then you always know where you're up to. So just to work this first line of this pattern,
Okay.
then I'm doing another twisted stitch. So the twisted knit stitch, instead of going into the front of the stitch like you would normally do, you go into the back, and that gives this raised line of stitches here.
Okay.
And then next one's a purl, and then we're going to work the twisted stitch. So this is the cable on 2 stitches. Now you go into you can see the second stitch that's on the needle, and you go into that as if you were going to knit it, and you pull the yarn through, but you don't slide it off, because if you did that you'd end up dropping that first stitch. So if you need to pull it with your thumb to give yourself some space, then do that. Put your needle into the first stitch and knit that one, and then drop the 2 off together. And if you can see, that's pulled.
And that swaps, that twists them around.
Yeah, that's pulled the second stitch over the first one.
Without having to use a cable needle.
Without using a cable needle. So that's the cable going that way, but then the second cable goes in the opposite direction. So we do the same thing again, is that we use the second stitch, but I don't want it to go in the same direction. So you go into the back of the stitch, and sometimes it's easier to pull your knitting down, and then that makes the loop a little bit bigger. And you would just go into the back of the stitch and knit it, but of course you can't pull it off, otherwise you'll drop that stitch. You're going to go into the front of that one and knit it, and then you slide them both off, and then one twists one way and one twists the other way.
That's magic.
It is magic. It's really clever.
Does that only work if you're doing a cable like on just 2 stitches like that?
You can do cables on without using a cable needle on more than 2 stitches, but sometimes it involves dropping the stitches off and then picking them up. So you've got to be feeling.
Want to do that.
You've got to be feeling quite brave to do that.
To know. Oh. That's really clever, though, isn't it?
It is
so much easier, and I guess tighter as well than using a cable needle.
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that one. I think if you were really bothered and didn't feel comfortable doing that, then you could use a cable needle.
I think
it would be. Yeah, it's.
Once you've done it a few times.
Yeah, when you do it a few times, and that's why it's good to have a lifeline in there, so that if you're worried you were going to drop something.
And you could always practice that on something else, couldn't you?
Of course you could.
Just rather than being, you could just practice on a bit of straight.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really lovely cable. I think it really adds a nice definition to the edge of that pattern as well, doesn't it?
Yes. I like these little 2-stitch cables. I just think that they're so quick and easy to work, and they're just really neat as well. I like those. They don't take up too much space, and they're not too bulky.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think it's really nice. I would definitely, I suppose everyone has their preference, and I suppose everyone's going, I use those, but I'm going to persevere with the magic loop, because that looks the easiest to me. It's
definitely worth giving it a go, and I would always recommend that somebody, if they weren't sure, then just try them all out, and because one of them will speak to you more than one of the others.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so if you've wrestled with double points for a long time, you think, I'm just going to
I'll put my hand up to that one.
You know, then you just think, which one shall I go for?
So what are the 3mm ones for?
Well, I recommend, because I use a cable cast on, which is a particular, there are lots of different ways of casting on, but I use a cable cast on which has got a really nice rolled edge to it.
Does that make it tighter then?
Yes, it does come out slightly tighter. There's not an awful lot of stretch in it. So if you use larger needles and then drop down to the smaller ones, then that tends to make sure that it doesn't get too tight at the top and it won't cut into your leg.
Okay, but you need it tight so they don't fall down.
The rib makes it tight, but if the actual cast on doesn't stretch, then you can't.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's difficult to get it on. So. You can, if you didn't want to use a different set of needles, then you could use your existing needles. Just make sure that you cast on really loosely. Okay. And it doesn't matter what cast on you use. You know, you can use it as long as it's a stretchy one. Then it really doesn't matter.
And is that in the Super Socks book?
It is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I know, because someone will go, how do I do that then? So basically, you need the Super Socks book, because that tells you everything to start with. More Super Socks takes you on to lace and patchwork and everything. And then the new pattern, the Seasons, is all of that together.
Yes. Yes, that one is just the patterns, whereas the other two
Yes,
are all
that's the
technique. There's a lot of hand holding in the
technique
in the
and
Super Socks
patterns,
book.
and then this is just
and then
the
that,
patterns.
Yes, and then that one's.
So you can't get the bundle anymore, but you can get, I don't know, which one would I have? Right. So thank you so much, Christine. I can't believe I don't know where the time's gone again. But it's been so, I feel so lucky that we were able to launch this with you.
I am thrilled that you've been able to do this. Thank you
to
very much.
get you on air the day that it comes out. So where if our viewers want to visit you, and not personally, could we have your address and postcode and your mobile number? No, if they want to visit you, how do they find you?
They can find me at my blog, which is winwickmum.co.uk, also on Instagram at Winwick Mum, Facebook Winwick Mum, and there are two Facebook groups. One for help with the basic sock, which is called Winwick Mum Sock Along, and that goes with the
sock along.
Goes with the yellow book with the tutorial. So that one is really just beginners, helping them get to grips with all the questions that you might have that they might think I've not answered in the book. And then there's a knit and natter group as well, which is everything else really that's not the basic sock, because everybody was chatting in the first one. So
you've moved all the chatters.
We moved the chat into the into the other group as well. So there are the two groups, and that's how you can get hold of them.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. It's been really nice. So we will have you back very, very soon.
Thank you.
We're doing something else. What's the next thing we're going to move on to?
Oh, I don't know.
Patchwork socks.
No. I don't know. We could do. That's in Tarsia in the round.
Yeah,
so
I think that would be
great.
really nice.
Or we could do two at a time maybe. Or we could
two at a time. Yes, I like that idea. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to
welcome.
quickly run through what we have left. So you can't buy the bundle anymore, but you can buy the pattern book, the Winwick Mum Seasons 4 hand knitted socks designs, a year of socks. So there it is, £9.50. There are more people who have this in baskets than we've actually got. So a bit like the supermarket, get to the checkout. Otherwise somebody will take it out of your basket. So obviously you don't have to use this yarn for these patterns, but it would be a shame not to, because they have been designed with the yarn. But you know, if you like the spring pattern, you want to knit it in the winter, vice versa, you can. You don't have to do it this way, but it sort of matches, doesn't it? So there's the 4 patterns, everything you need to know, all in. You can choose whether you have a pattern or a chart. You don't have to use a chart. That's entirely up to you. I haven't got time to do all of but we've been through it already. There's a lovely picture of the yarns as well. And then if you want to buy the yarns, we are selling these separately. So there's the spring green with a hint of primrose. Now I know the story behind these. Spring green with a hint of primrose is the spring one. That one's on screen at the moment. These are spun in the UK by West Yorkshire Spinners, reared, sheared and spun in Britain. Absolutely. Which is so lovely, aren't they? 75% wool, 25% nylon for strength, and 35% of that is Blueface Leicester, which makes them soft. So they're not itchy, scratchy socks.
They are not itchy, scratchy socks.
They are not itchy. They are soft, lovely soft socks. But remember, they can be used for other things. Any pattern that you've got that requires a 4-ply yarn, you can use this for. It doesn't have to be socks. Summer Sunset, which is beautiful shades and hues of orange, pink, burgundy. It's almost like a light apricot. This is the most popular one at the moment. There are only single figures left of this one. So as this show goes on through the rest of the day and it's replayed, these will sell out. So if you want them, you need to get them now. The autumn one, Autumn Leaves, struggling with that one, possibly be my favourite. Because I love the leaves and the autumn. I think autumn's my favourite season, so I love the colours. That's really lovely. Again, exactly the same as the others. 80% wool, 20% nylon, with that really softness of the lovely Blueface Leicester. And you know, the whole thing has been designed and dyed in association between West Yorkshire Spinners and Christine, because she chose the colours and they provided the wool. And the final one is Winter Icicle, which is inspired by the ice in the ice hotel and the water, with that lovely sort of periwinkle, cornflower blue and turquoise and aqua and navy and ivory. 4-ply, remember. So, you know, you don't have to use them for socks, but it would be a shame not to. So, brilliant. Super Socks. If you're brand new to socks, this was Christine's first book, everything you need to know about socks. It's even got everything about the needles, which is often, you know, what needles should I use? It tells you all about, do you want to use double pointed needles? Do you want to use circular? How to do it? We have had this on air twice before. We had it first with Nicola from Twink Knits because she told me about her. And then we had it with you. Both times it sold out. So we've luckily got more back in stock. So this is the complete beginner's guide to socks. And then the more super socks, this takes you on to the next step. So this takes you on to the patterns, so like the patchwork, the intarsia, the lace pattern. And both books have sock patterns in them. They're not just technique. So Yarn Lane is back on Wednesday with Wendy Orlando, and we are going to be doing Swifts and yarn winding. So many people say to me, how do I wind a hank of yarn? How do I rewind a ball of yarn? How do I do that? So we've got a complete masterclass to Swifts, ball winders and pom-poms too. And lots of hanks of yarn to buy. So you'll learn lots then. So I will see you. I will be back here next Monday, but Yarn Lane will be back on Wednesday. But thank you for joining me and Christine today, and happy sock knitting.